Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Beginner's Guide to Piano. This is part 2, and we're going to be building off of some concepts we talked about in part 1. So if you're completely new to the piano and you haven't seen part 1, I would highly recommend you pause this one, click the link that is connected to this video, and that will take you to part 1 so you can have the foundation. Because in this video, we're going to be fleshing out the bass pattern we learned, which for your fingers was 1, 4, 3, 5, and then we start at 1. Now in chords, you can call it two ways. That's either a 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression, or as I like to call it, the basis of all pop music chord progression. Or if you're in the key of C, meaning you're only using white keys and your thumb is on C, that means that the chord is C, G, A, F, and then back to C, and you repeat the pattern. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to play those chords, really easily, and then how to start improvising on top of those chords. So let's get into it. All right, so here we are at the piano, and the first thing that you're going to do is find a C. Now C is right here, we talked about this in the first video, and try to find a C that's lower than middle C. And so here's how a chord works. So if you want to think about it in terms of fingers, basically all you do is you start at your pinky and then you skip every other finger. So your fifth finger, skip the fourth finger. Play the third finger, skip the second finger, play the fifth finger. And there's a chord, right? Each finger has its own key, and you skipped every other finger and you have a chord. So we have the C chord. If we take the same finger formation and we go up to G, we have a G major chord. If we slide up one note with the same finger formation, and keep in mind that each finger needs to have its own key, we have an A chord. And then if you go down 2 notes to F, you have a F chord. And so let's review. So if you put your pinky on C, and there's a chart of the notes on the piano on the screen, put your pinky on C, skip every other finger, put your pinky on G, skip every other finger, pinky on A, pinky on F, and then back to pinky on C. Right, so now you might be thinking, that looks a little hard because my hand is having to move all over the place. You're having to go, and that's understandable. You have to do a lot. Here's the challenge for you. If you look at a C major chord and just look at the notes that are on there, you have C, E, and G, right? You don't have to remember the names, just what they look like. And then if you go to F, F, A, C are the chord members. You don't have to remember the names again, but just remember what they look like. Right? So you have F, A, and C. So what would happen if you played the C major chord with your pinky on C, but then what you did is you kept your pinky on C and you figured out a different way to play the F chord. So you already have C, now all you need to do is have F and A. Well, F is already under your second finger, right? And then A happens to be one note above where your thumb is. So just stretch out your thumb a little bit, and then you have the F major chord, right? So you go. So there's a way you can play F, right? What about G? Well, let's look for the chord members that are closest to our fingers. Well, our thumb is already on G, so that's easy. What about B? B would be the next note in the chord. Well, our pinky is right next to B, so why don't we stretch our pinky there? And then, why don't we use our third finger to play the D? And then look at that. All of a sudden we have a G major chord. Now here's something important to keep in mind that's part of piano technique. Whenever your hand needs to stretch, it's best to always stretch between your thumb and your index finger. That's just where your hand naturally stretches. So when I play the G chord and my pinky needs to go to B, all of my fingers pivot from my thumb and open up my hand. And that's why my third finger plays the D chord. What about the A chord? Now this one's the hardest to do with this chord progression. You just need to take the exact same shape of your hand, even with the stretch, slide up every finger one note, and then you have the A chord. And then all you have to do is just play your second finger, and you have your F major chord. So it's going to end up sounding like this. And then that's the chord progression. Now, if you want to get more advanced with it, maybe one thing you could do is you break the chord up. And so then, if we build on top of the 1, 2, 3, go method for improvising that we talked about in the last video, you start getting something that kind of sounds like this. Switching up the pattern here. Okay, so let me summarize what we talked about in this video. So now, ignoring theory, the best way to start to understand how to play chords is very simple. You put your pinky on C, if you're saying on the white keys, which I still recommend you do, and then you just skip every other finger. So it ends up being your 5th finger, your 3rd finger, and your 1st finger. And if you just take that formation, you get all the chords you want, right? And then we talked about making them easier to play. And this is where your own exploration is going to come in really handy. But we talked about how you can play a G chord by keeping your thumb on G. You can play a chord by keeping that same shape and sliding up every finger by 1 note. And then all you have to do to play F chord is just to put your 2nd finger down. You could even play a 7 if you want. And then back to C. And that's what we talked about. And still the 1, 2, 3 go method for improvising still applies here. The chords don't change that. It's still a great rule of thumb to follow as you're improvising. You can choose to ignore it, but it is really helpful and gives structure to your music. And also returning to C every once in a while gives structure as well. And that's it. That's the video. I hope this is helpful to you guys and is motivating you as you pursue your goals in music. And if you really want to take the next step in your goals in music, maybe one of your New Year's resolutions was to learn guitar, piano, take formal singing lessons, or learn the cello. Well, we offer lessons for all of those instruments, and we offer them online and in person in some locations. And you can try a free trial lesson, completely risk-free and no obligations. You can sign up using the link given below, and we can get you set up for your free trial lesson to see if the teachers in the studio would be a good fit for you. I'll see you in part 3 of the Beginner's Guide to Piano.